Where in the world is Andrew Mason today?
Where in the world is Cecil Lammey today? I mean, we're both, we're not in Denver. We're not at the game site for the Senior Bowl.
Right.
We're in different states right now because we're flying out of different airports.
But our minds are on one thing, and that's the Denver Broncos Senior Bowl. Stock rising, stock falling. Andrew Mason, you're going to have it locked down at denversports.com. But we're going to talk about it today on today's program. We're welcoming everyone. And yeah, you see the headline there. That's a no. Yeah, that would be a no for me. Mace, we're going to go Randy Jackson on today's show. Because that's a no for me, dog.
It's a no for me at number 12.
Okay.
Again,
good delineation, by the way.
Yes. Value matters. Draft position matters. And look, we all know this. If the Broncos, whoever the Broncos decide on, Sean Payton will believe that person can run his offense, especially if it's a first-round pick. You get to the second round, third round, you're talking about flyers. But what I saw from Bo Nix today, along with, we did say he had a chance to step up, right? Not that he was number 12, but that he could step up to reach that level. And it did not seem like he did that this week. I wouldn't be opposed to him at 25. That's where the risk-reward ratio feels like it's a little better than at pick number 12.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, all right, he's not going to be taken at 12. He will be selected somewhere in the first round because those tools are there. We actually got to see 7-on-7 this morning. And Mace, I'm perplexed. I'm definitely going to send Jim some notes, Jim Nagy, just as a friendly, like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. But when you don't see 7-on-7, and it's like, well, that's not doing anybody any good.
Yeah, I mean, there were actually some decent moments for Bo Nix in 7-on-7 today. And the thing is, when you're talking about somebody who, if they're going to flourish, is on the rhythm and timing basis, where do you develop that rhythm and timing? You don't do it operating under duress. You establish that foundation in a more controlled environment like 7-on-7. 7-on-7 does two things. Number one, that it allows you, without pressure, to figure out your marks, your steps, make sure you're staying on schedule. The other thing is that it's a test of decision-making for the quarterback, right? Because you don't want to see a scramble in 7-on-7. Because what you want to see is the quarterback finding whatever the best option is, even if it's not 100% option, and getting there quickly in that process. Like Sam Hartman today had a keeper in 7-on-7. In the American team practice, Joe Milton had a keeper in 7-on-7. Neither of those are what you want to see. Part of it is make a choice, right? That's why whenever we see somebody scramble in 7-on-7, I mean, today when Sam Hartman did it, you and I looked at each other and kind of gave a painful exchange of glances because we were thinking about Paxton Lynch.
Right. Yeah, it was a knowing nod.
Yeah.
Mace. Like, we just look at each other and we just know, like, oh, we've seen that before, and that's not good. With Bo Nix, before we move into Michael Penix, you're saying stock down. I mean, it's not like Hartman. Hartman's stock goes down, but Bo Nix is a down for you, correct?
Yeah, down, like slightly down, because this was more okay. Could he elevate himself to that 12 spot and really get into the conversation, right? I don't see that right now. And in fact, I mean, if you told me, okay, Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr., you have to take one, I would take Penix, even with the injury concerns that we're going to probably hear more about as he gets to the combine and goes through the medicals.
Yeah, and that's where the combine is going to be absolutely huge for Michael Penix. We did get some great interaction on Twitter about, like, okay, well, if you guys like these guys, Bo Nix coming into the Senior Bowl, why do these days change? And I thought it was a really fair question. It is a fair question, because these practices are 5 to 10% of the grade. It's not much overall. But Mace, I'll tell you, there's nothing that beats in-person scouting. And it makes you look at their flaws differently, because we see the flaws on tape. Maybe sometimes we don't see a lot of them because college offenses are so different than what you're asked to do at the pro level. When you get here in Mobile, you are asked to do pro things that you may not be doing, like Bo Nix taking snaps under center.
Right. And actually, I wasn't as concerned about under center as I was just about the decision-making under duress and the speed at which he was making those decisions. Because the other thing that happens here, he wasn't doing any favors by not having 7-on-7, because, again, he needed to establish that foundation of rhythm and timing with receivers with whom he'd never worked, okay? So there's that, and you have to put that into consideration when you're looking at the overall picture. However, one thing that does happen during Senior Bowl week, if you're a quarterback, you're facing a defense. Something's going on near me. You're facing a defense, a secondary that all those dudes are NFL guys. Like, you can't, it's not as easy to kind of pick at the weak spot, which is a slot corner who's going to be teaching math in 12 months, right? You don't have that down here at the Senior Bowl. What you've got everybody going to the next level. You don't have that in college, and so there's less margin for error.
Yeah, less margin for error, and it's time to get it done in the largest job interview that you're going to have. I mean, this is big, and it's football, Mace. We will be at the Combine. The Combine is different. The Combine is testing. The Combine is mainly medicals, but this is the last time we get to really see these guys play football until the fall.
Yes, exactly. So from here on out, it's the underwear Olympics. And you know what? We're going to see people overreact to the underwear Olympics and overreact to pro days. Remember 3 years ago when Zach Wilson went through his workout on pro day at BYU and he had that kind of cross-body throw that was 55 yards in the air downfield and was like, oh, my God. Ah! Yeah. And it turned out 3 years later, he was getting benched for Tim Boyle by the New York Jets after he started the season as a backup. So
well, and I won't belabor it, but you mentioned Paxton. We were talking to somebody, I can't remember. We've talked to a lot of people, and they were like, I think it's that pro day that catapulted him, and Andy. Well, there's an article recently about Andy Reid, how in love he was with Paxton. Jerry Jones lost sleep because they didn't draft Paxton. I think they're fine. Both those teams are fine with their quarterbacks.
Yeah, think about the what if there of the Cowboys and Chiefs desiring Paxton Lynch. The interesting thing is they had done more homework on Paxton Lynch than the Broncos did, and they still wanted him, which sort of then goes back to you because you were supporting Paxton Lynch after a lot of people had gotten off the bandwagon, right? That's fair to say.
Because I knew Trevor Siemian wasn't the guy, and I want the first rounder to play because, one, he had the physical tools. He didn't have the mental tools. Sorry, that's not personal. That's just the way it is. And I wanted him to play because if he didn't work out, you can go get another one. And instead, they set on him like a hen trying to hatch an egg. It's like, it's not going to be there. Play him. It's not working. Okay, get rid of him. Would have been a better plan.
Exactly. You would have known sooner. You would have come to that conclusion, right?
Right.
Whereas as much as Trevor Siemian maximized his gifts, it was not a road to an end that was going to result in anything positive. But anyway, that's the distant past. Paxton Lynch is out of football right now. It's about Bo Nix, it's about Michael Penix Jr., it's about Michael Pratt. Michael Pratt, who told us yesterday that he's talked with the Broncos a couple of times. We talked about it on last night's OBT. So today, the part of practice that I saw 7-on-7, it was a little bit rough for Michael Pratt today. He had a pass behind and above the intended target that I don't know if it would have been a pick six in game conditions, full 11-on-11, but it did go for an explosive return. So, you don't want to overreact too much one way or the other. But, again, there's a reason why we're talking about Michael Pratt as a day 2 prospect rather than day 1 prospect.
Yeah, and day two, it's a different level of the risk that you're willing to take. If we haven't really talked about Milton much. Reminds me of Malik Willis, but a better prospect than
Yes.
Malik Willis. And Willis was what, a third, fourth round pick, top of my head?
Round 3 pick, who some people thought could go in round 1, but it was a QB fallow year, at least at the top. Of course, it turned out that was the year that also brought us Brock Purdy there with Mr. Irrelevant at the end of the draft. So
Right. And there's not a Brock Purdy this year, but Pratt could be that guy. Michael Penix, we'll spend some time with him. By the way, programming note, Mace, I am uploading the Nix video right now, so probably a minute or two. It's hotel Wi-Fi, everybody. We're dealing with what we can. I'll have the Nix video. I got it turned, and we're going to upload it here and play it for everybody. But while that's uploading, Mace, let's talk about Michael Penix.
And you and I I think we have a little bit of a disagreement of opinion on him. Part of it, look, there is a compare and contrast that goes on when you see two quarterbacks in juxtaposition. What I saw from Penix compared to Nix, much more comfort operating under center, comfort operating play fake boot. But the critiques about him operating under pressure and the decision making, those were valid. Things did break down from under pressure. You'd like to see him improve his footwork. By and large, I thought he made better decisions and was more accurate over the course of 3 days than Bo Nix was.
Yeah, and the thing with Penix that's most frustrating, Mace, is you mentioned the mechanics. He'll throw off his back foot and he'll put it right on the money, like dime piece. And then he'll do it again and it'll be 4 yards over the guy's head.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, I mean, I like that he can do it. He can do off-platform. He does have arm elasticity, which means he can just throw it from any sort of angle. But, man, the consistency is not there at all whatsoever.
Exactly. It's frustrating because you wonder how much of that, again, was also due to the way things were structured, not only just getting used to new receivers and tight ends and running backs, but also not having 7-on-7, because we have seen at Washington what Michael Penix Jr. looks like when he gets into a rhythm and gets the timing down. And that wasn't there this week. And I almost, if I have to kind of take a critical look at the week, I'm honestly going to have a little bit of grace with maybe, and again, I still think Bo Nix is not a number 12 overall pick, but I think I think honestly with the quarterbacks and the offense in general on the national team, I'm having grace because the practice structure did not really allow for the same generation of rhythm and consistency that we usually see by day 3. I mean, I don't know about you, Cecil, but when I was watching the national team practice and the quarterbacks there were Sam Hartman, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, I felt like we were watching a day 1 practice. Normally on this third day, you really start seeing the timing get to be pretty crisp, right?
Yep.
That didn't happen.
But today was the first day they did 7-on-7. So it's like
and
the
after
crispness they didn't allow to develop.
After team period, that was another thing. Usually 7-on-7 is part of the build-up to team period. Like a typical practice, like that you'll see Sean Payton run, you'll see 7-on-7 red zone early, right? What does that mean? You're going to see 7-on-7 team period later on in practice, or red zone team period later on in practice. So you have the 7-on-7 red zone early, get the rhythm and timing down, and then later on in practice you go red zone with a team, and that allows you to kind of build off the foundation of timing that you've established earlier in the day. None of that. And ultimately, these practices, when they work, they are about giving everyone the best possible look. I think at least for the team that they were on, the national team, which practiced in the mornings rather than the afternoons, I feel like they got some short shrift here out of the work, and that's why maybe we can't glean quite as much as we ordinarily could.
Right. So Nix will still be a first-round pick. Penix, though, guys that we trust are saying mid-second. And then, okay, maybe this performance moves him to the third. Maybe he's still mid-second. Maybe if we allow that grace for Penix, because tools-wise, he's got first-round tools.
Yeah.
No doubt. First round tools.
First round tools. Day 3 health. I know some kind of focus on the age as well, that these were 2 quarterbacks, Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr., who were in college for a long time. I'm less concerned about that. But again, like, Penix would be a pretty high, a high first rounder if not for the health. That's for 2 shoulder injuries, 2 knee injuries. That's the concern, and also the concern being that when he finally took hits this past season, finally found himself under heavy attack in the national championship game. All of a sudden he's hurt. Unfortunately, some players are just more susceptible to injuries than others. Michael Penix Jr.'s history shows that. And it might be an ouchie, but you have to consider it in the overall evaluation, because you're making a decision here that is a potential franchise, career, life-altering decision for people who are working in that organization.
And sometimes it's just playing style. You'll remember Bob Sanders, and I don't think he turns out as well as Bob Sanders, but Sanders was fantastic, and he just throw his body around, get hurt all the time. I think with Penix, he has a bit of that as well. So stock kind of not necessarily up, not necessarily down. It's kind of.
I'd say with Penix, what you thought of him before the week is probably what you think of him at the end of the week. Bo Nix, I'm going to say down. As I reflect on it and reflect on the week, maybe not as down as my initial impressions were. Slightly down. But you and I talked about it, like to push into the top 10, top 12, he needed to elevate himself this week, and I don't feel like he did that. But then again, like you said, 5 to 10% is the evaluation maybe of this week, maybe not even this much. I mean, for Bo Nix, let's say we're talking about the Broncos. The more important thing for Bo Nix is going to be what happens when he's up there at the whiteboard in front of Sean Payton and everybody else. That's going to be that's going to have more value than, because this is all about showing Sean Payton that you can be his quarterback.
Yep. And
his decision is the one that matters. Yeah. His decision is the one that matters.
Yep.
Everyone else's is kind of, there. It's an opinion. There's only one person whose vote really counts.
Well, not everyone's there. Maybe leave that one alone. I do have the Nix video ready. You want to set this one up? This was basically our questions for Bo Nix.
Yeah, we had a chance to chat with him yesterday at the Senior Bowl Media Day event in Mobile. Asked him about, what does he want to convey teams? What are the important things that Bo Nix wants teams to learn about him in the interview process? Asked him a little about the whiteboard, and then you asked him about operating under center. Let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
When you interview with teams, what are the most important things that you want them to learn about you in the process?
Probably my knowledge of the game. I just want them to understand the efficiency and the productivity that we had at Oregon the last 2 years, and just the the freedoms that we had, and just from what it looks like overall as an offense and how we operated. And at the same time, they can watch film and see everything they need to know from a physical standpoint, but it's just kind of getting to know you and understanding what's in your mind, I think, is the most intriguing part.
When you interview, how do you make sure that you nail the whiteboard part of the interview?
Just be yourself and just speak about what you learn and just talk about what you know. And I think that part, to be honest, is sometimes the easiest, because you just kind of, football is football. You just let the rules take over, and it's universal terms, but you just kind of show what you know.
What's your comfort level like with taking snaps from under center?
100% comfortable.
That was his answer. That was it. Short. Like I said, curt and courteous.
Yes. Yeah. He wasn't discourteous at all. I think he just wants to get the ball, man. If I were to, armchair psychologist the thing, I think he just wants to get the ball. Yeah,
I think so. But isn't that what you want with a quarterback? They want the ball.
Yes.
Yeah, they want it. That you don't want somebody who is afraid of that. Like the quarterback by nature has to want the ball. They're a leader.
Yep. And I don't want a guy that's super fake and super positive. Like, I love positive thinking, but there also comes the reality of the truth, which is all that matters. Like, I don't want a guy up there faking it.
Yeah. And I don't think any of these guys are up there faking it either. Like any of the ones that we talked to this week. I think, look, you have to have some level of leadership, elan, and presence and command and wanting to have the ball to succeed at a high level at the college level, let alone the NFL. So they've all got that to some degree.
Yeah, they do have that to some degree. Mace, I promised you 20 minutes and get you back on the road. So let's wrap up today's show. We got plenty to say. We're going to have plenty of orange blue today. You down with OBT? Yeah, you know me. So let's
oh my God.
Hey, that was in the chat room earlier. I think Keith had that in the chat room earlier. So there you go. Yeah, Keith. Blame Keith. Don't blame me. I just read them. I'll read anything on that screen.
Yeah, exactly, Ron. Who put a question mark in the prompter?
You poop mouth. Anyway,
yes. I am Andrew Mason.
I'm Andrew Mason. Final thoughts, brother. It's been a hell of a week. Texas, Alabama.
Yeah.
OBT on the road. I mean,
if the Broncos can't trade up, and I really don't expect they're going to be able to do that anyway. If they can't do that, they could play to the strengths of the draft and really help themselves, okay? Like, coming out of this week, I love the tackles, I love the corners, I love the running backs, right?
I love the edge, too.
Yeah.
Good edge in this.
I mean,
Robinson working his way in the first round, by the way.
This was as good a group of corners as I've ever seen at a Senior Bowl.
Yep.
And that's why you were testing the quarterbacks in their decision making because there weren't a lot of windows there because those guys were plastering on the back end. So the interesting thing is this. If you cut Garett Bolles, tackle's a huge need, although I imagine you could just get Cam Fleming back for a year and he'd be a perfectly fine mid-level left tackle, which is what he was in 2022. Not a right tackle. We saw what happened in Vegas when he played right tackle for Mike McGlinchey. But he's a perfectly prominent, in Simpsons parlance, left tackle, right? So what I'm saying there is then you'd have a scenario where you could pick a tackle, a corner, a running back, and they're not primary needs this year, but they could be areas you need to fill in by 2025. Anticipating future needs is part of what you're doing in the draft, right? But do the Broncos have the luxury of doing that? That's where the lack of draft capital comes into play here, right?
Yep.
I do expect they'll take a QB, and the QB will arrive third round or earlier. May not be round one. I think they will explore trying to trade up, but it's not something they want to do. They certainly don't want to trade Pat Surtain to do it. That's a last resort. But if they can't do that, this may be, in the words of our friend Parker Gabriel of the Denver Post, it might be an eat your vegetables kind of draft where you are filling some needs, whether it's for this year or popping up in the future. You're planning ahead. You are taking care of some items on the checklist. It just might not be the item that everybody wants to have taken care of. That's the thing to consider here.
You're at the grocery store and a butcher doesn't have the best cut of meat.
Yeah. Or you took a number. You're number 12. Right?
Right.
The Kobe beef is going 1, 2, 3. Okay. You might be. I'm not saying you're left with bologna. but you might be talking about some salami.
I was going to say Oscar Mayer Wiener, but anyway, Mace, what do you do with your badges? I'm just curious. I got a box full of them. I remember G-Man years ago. Our friend G-Man was on the Fox, and I was working at the machine shop. This was like 20 years ago, and he was like, I got a drawer full of badges, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. Now I got a box full of badges, and I'm like, I've got a lot of badges. So what do you do? I gave one to my barber years ago when I cut my hair. But other than that, I've got all of them.
I still have all of them too. Years ago, I mounted some on a poster board and framed them. And I was gonna put it on my wall, but the spouse said no, that doesn't look good. But deep in my heart, I still want to display them all. So I want to come up with something.
James Palmer did that, by the way. If you watch James on NFL Network, he has that behind him. It looks really cool.
I know. Like I feel like I'm sitting on all these credentials going back two decades plus, right? There's something I can do with them. I think that would be worthy of them. So, ideas, you can submit them to me on Instagram or Twitter or X, whatever. I'm at Mace Denver, or just drop them in the comment section, because I probably will check the comments tonight. I've been a little busy this week. I got some catch-up correspondence to do tonight, and some of that catching up is going to involve going in the comment section. So appreciate everyone who's chiming in, and we'll have plenty more. One of the things I'm going to do over the weekend is go through the clips that I shot this week. And we're going to work them in to future shows, Orange and Blue today, so you can get a look at some of these guys. I'm really looking forward, by the way, to watching. I rolled on the pit, but I wasn't really concentrating on it this afternoon. I'm really looking forward to watching that. I'm starting to fall in love with some of these tackles. I'll tell you that as well. Wouldn't be opposed to one very early in the draft.
Yep, it's a tackle draft. It's an edge draft, and it's always an OBT draft. That doesn't make sense. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit the notification
bell so that you never miss a vid. You got in that quick.
Bring it on you.
Who's drafted first? You or me? Who's the first one off the board?
Oh boy, I think I'm more of a sleeper, right?
Okay.
Because they're going to look at Laramie County Community College and they're going to be like, why are we drafting a guy from a community college? They're going to look at you with the degrees and the history and the parlance, and then they're going to be like, okay, number one. But we're both Pro Bowlers. We're both all pro, baby.
Yes. Okay, there you go.
All right, he's Mace, I'm Cease. Thanks for watching, everyone. OBT is BFD. We appreciate you all. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty.